Welcome into a Friday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, we'll take a look at this Seahawks-Falcons matchup. The Falcons need a play from their quarterback, and are the Braves primed for a postseason run? It's all next. Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Welcome in on this Friday to Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into that search browser. When you find us, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. We are free and available to download on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Don't forget Roku and Amazon Fire. You can also find us now on those platforms. And then follow me at JMCH316 on Twitter. Well, we get ready Sunday, Falcons and Seahawks, week 3 in the NFL. Look, as we've said all week, I think that this is must win, not because of playoff implications or this, any other. This team needs a win. The fans need a win, right? So obviously this is a very good matchup for the Falcons. If you're going to get stuck on the road and be out west, okay, the Seahawks are obviously not a great team. They had a great opening week, in the Russell Wilson Bowl and all that, and then, weren't so good last week. So looking at some of the numbers, okay, let's start with the Seahawks offense. Now, they only average 12 points per game offensively. So you're not even averaging 2 touchdowns per game. You're averaging, 4 field goals per game. So that's good news. This is not some offense that goes out and lights it up and hucks it around and things like that. I'll give Geno Smith credit. He's an 81% completion percentage quarterback this year. And as of right now, through the first couple of weeks, they have no recorded dropped passes. So they haven't hurt their quarterback at all. And obviously they have 2 very, very good wide receivers. We've been talking about the Falcons pass defense this week, but obviously when you look at the wide receivers in Lockett and Metcalf, that's a combination that's really good in this league. So the Falcons defense obviously has their work cut out for them. Both of those guys, Lockett is at 80% catch percentage. Metcalf is at 84.6% catch percentage. Those are outstanding numbers in the NFL. You'd like to be in the high 60s if possible. So being in the 80s is outstanding. So there are some things that they do well. Now, the thing they don't do well is run the football. They are dead last in the NFL at running the football. They have the fewest rushing yards of any team in the league. So if they're going to beat you, they're going to have to do it through the air. I think Penny's got 75 yards. Rashad Penny's got 75 yards on the season. They're not going to run it down your throat and beat you that way. They're going to have to air it out, and they're going to have to get Geno Smith to make some plays and those 2 wide receivers. So the Falcons pass defense needs to be on full alert in this game. 2 good wide receivers, and they're efficient when they pass the football. Now, defensively for the Seahawks, this is not the Legion of Boom, Bobby Wagner defense anymore. All of those guys are gone. Doesn't mean they've been terrible, but if you look at some of the numbers, one is they give up 21.5 points per game. So they score 12 and give up 21.5. That's obviously not, that good of a ratio in it. They have given up the 3rd most third downs in the NFL. So they don't get off the field very well on third down. They've given up the 3rd most third downs in the league. Their 7.8 yards per pass attempt is the 4th highest in the NFL. So when they give up, when quarterbacks drop back and throw it against the Seahawks defense, and by the way, they have 0 interceptions on the season. So they haven't made a takeaway from the other team's quarterback. And when other teams' quarterbacks throw it against them, they get good chunks of yardage. That's good news, because that means London, Pitt, Zacchaeus, Hodge, those guys, when they make catches and plays, have a chance to get some big plays. You may not have, look, obviously the game plan this weekend is you're not asking Mariota to go back and huck it around and all this kind of stuff, right? But when you do have to throw the football, it's a situation where you can get some bigger chunks of yards. You run, soften them up to where now you get some play action passing or get some just pass plays that get some big chunks of yards in this. And by the way, this Seahawks defense has only had 3 sacks on the season. So imagine that. We're in week 3 in the NFL, and the Falcons have more sacks on defense than the Seahawks defense does. Most people probably wouldn't have thought that years ago, right? So look, it's pretty simple. It's pretty basic. You don't get cute. You don't do anything tricky. You don't pull out the box of gimmicks and do all of that nonsense this weekend. You play sound fundamental football. They don't turn it over a whole bunch. They don't create turnovers. They don't sack the quarterback. They don't run the football effectively. So some of the basics that you'd like to see out of a football team, they don't do as well. At least through the first couple of weeks of the season, the Falcons have run the football effectively. They have been able to sack the quarterback, 5 sacks in 2 games. You'll take that all day long, even though it was disappointing last week with only 1 sack. Gino's been sacked 4 times on the season, so you expect a sack or 2 on Sunday. But there's no reason to get cute. With all due respect, I don't care about targets and this and that this weekend. I'm not really focused on that. I'm focused on play fundamental football to win this game. Run the football effectively. The numbers I'll be looking at this weekend. What's the yards per attempt out of my running backs? Because I expect not just Patterson, but Algier's going to get another good handful of carries. I think he'll probably be in that 10 to 12, maybe even more, but certainly probably 10 to 12 carry. Arthur Smith talked this week about how he liked Algier's performance and that he's done a lot of good things leading up to this. So I expect probably another 10 or 12 carries out of Tyler Algier. This should be a run-heavy game for the Falcons where you mix in some passes to get some big chunks of plays. But the Seahawks defense doesn't do a good job of getting off the field on 3rd down. They don't do a good job of sacking the quarterback. They haven't created an interception this year. So you don't need to get cute. And also, you don't let Geno Smith drop back and huck it around and go out there and beat you, right? This is where Hayward, Terrell, Grant, Hawkins, this is where those guys have to play well this week. You don't let a team that's not very good either get turnovers or make big plays against you, right? That's the things that kill. That's how bad teams stay in these kinds of games, is they make a couple of big plays, a 40-yard touchdown pass, or they sack, they create a turnover, sack, strip, fumble, couple of picks, whatever. So nothing cute, nothing fancy about what needs to be done this weekend. Run the football, play good defense, sack the quarterback, change up down and distance. We know they can't run the football, so there's no need to give up 125 yards on the ground this weekend. And don't turn the football over. They do those basic things, basic fundamental football. There's no reason whatsoever they can't win this game. And by the way, the Vegas odds, everybody's talking about the play is the under in this game. I agree. 42, I think, is the over-under, somewhere in that range. I haven't looked in the last day or so, but 42, somewhere around in that range. Okay, I'll take the under on that. And the Falcons are anywhere from a 1 to 3 point underdog, meaning that if this game were played on a neutral field, at worst, they'd be a pick 'em. At best, they would be favored by a point or two. So I do think that the Falcons find a way to win this Sunday. It's not going to be a pretty game to watch, per se. It's going to be very basic, I think, stripped down, very fundamental style football in this thing. We'll see what happens. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Marcus Mariota. But first, let's talk about our friends over at betonline.net. That is your number one source for all of your sports wagering information. Look, NFL kicked off last night. Interesting game with the Browns. College football, I was watching Georgia State. They stunk it up last night. Big weekend in college football in the NFL, right? You want to be smarter about your sports wagering information. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your wagering information. E-scores, betting, whatever you need, lines, podcast information, All your news and notes is right there in the palm of your hand. You take that mobile device and head to betonline.net today to be a smarter, better when it comes to sports wagering. Use that mobile device, head to betonline.net today. Be smarter with betonline.net. Hitting hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta as we talk about the Falcons and Seahawks. Look, one guy that the Falcons need this Sunday, and I don't mean he needs to, play offensive player of the week level for the Falcons, is Marcus Mariota. Through the first 2 games of this season, Mariota's been okay. Has he done anything to win you a football game? No, obviously not. They haven't won a football game. But he has done some things that have not helped your team. And his turnovers, when he's made them, have been, let's say, for a kind way to put it, in opportune times. Now, a couple of things that I was looking at statistically for Mariota. On the season, he's got obviously, a couple of interceptions. So he's only got 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions on the season. 62.7% completion percentage for the year. Okay, that's not terrible, but that's obviously, not great. And he has thrown it a decent amount of times this year. But a couple of things that I was looking at. So first off, his passing in the fourth quarter. He's 11 for 18, so that's 61% completion. So in the fourth quarter, he completes a lower percentage of his passes than he does what his overall numbers tell you. And the other thing that I thought was interesting in looking at this was his red zone passing. He's 5 for 9 in the red zone. Now, he does have, obviously, the 2 touchdowns, and thankfully he doesn't have an interception, but 5 for 9, and it's only 29 yards. 5 for 9, which is basically 56% completion percentage. That ain't where you want your quarterback when it's red zone time, right? That's where you want your quarterback to be efficient. So Mariota's had some deficiencies late in games and in the red zone. Okay? This has to be a week where Mariota plays clean. Can't afford a turnover. You can't give the football back. No dumb bonehead plays. And I know people are talking about, what about the play he made on 4th down where he fell down and got up and hit Parker Hesse? Okay, how many plays like that do you think a quarterback's going to make during the season? First off, think about how blown the coverage was on that play to allow your quarterback to fall down, stand up, gather himself, and throw it to an open receiver. Think about how much of a blown coverage. That reminds me of some of the plays. You remember a few years ago that they the Raiders game specifically, the Austin Hooper, actually it was Carolina and the Raiders, where Austin Hooper in the first couple of games where he had these monster plays, like, well, look at Austin Hooper. He's got a 70-yard and a 60. Yeah, because there were such blown coverages, he was wide open. That's not on Austin Hooper, made some kind of great play. That was Carolina and Oakland. They were just dreadful at coverage, and guy got wide open on a big play. That's what that Parker Hesse 4th down play was. But they need Mariota to make her play. Look, Mariota's main job to me this week is to turn and hand off the football and not put their team in a bad position. Don't fumble it. Don't let it get intercepted. They haven't gotten that. We just explained the Seahawks defense has not made an interception this year. So there's no reason to start a trend with that, this weekend. Play simple, sound, fundamental football. And if you can control the line of scrimmage, we've talked about, you'll be in every NFL game, right? You'll be able to win every NFL game. But at some point, you will need your quarterback to make a play. And that's where I need Marcus Mariota. I need 2 things out of Mariota. First thing is play clean. No turnovers, no goofy plays. Second thing is make me a play. And I say a play. Think back in the history of football, right? Remember Jacksonville in that AFC Championship game against the Patriots when Blake Bortles couldn't make a play? They did everything else fine. They were fine at defense. They were fine. Line of scrimmage. Everything else was fine. but they couldn't make a play with their quarterback and lost. Remember a handful of years ago, Alex Smith in the NFC Championship game with the 49ers when it was against the Giants, and they didn't complete a pass to their wide receivers until like in the middle of the third quarter. And they lost that game. Why? Because it couldn't make a play. You just need a play from your quarterback. If you can run the football, sack the quarterback, control the line of scrimmage, if you can just get a play from your quarterback, you got a shot. And that's what Mariota needs to do. And if it gets in the red zone, simplify it. One read, throw. Just like the Drake London touchdown. Drop back, one read, throw. That's your hot route. Hit it. Go. Don't think. Don't read the defenses. Don't get cute. I saw there was another stat too about Mariota that I thought was interesting, and it was how much time he had in the pocket. When he's less than 2.5 seconds in the pocket, he's a 57.58% completion quarterback. When he has 2.5 seconds or more, which is not a huge amount of time, but 2.5 seconds or more, he goes up to 69.23%. And when he has less than 2.5 seconds, that's where both of his interceptions have come. So obviously protecting Marcus Mariota and giving him some time to throw. And 2.5 seconds is not a huge amount of time in the NFL, but it's enough. A half a second here, and your quarterback, that's the difference between your quarterback completes a pass and he's standing up looking out his ear hole with the ball in his hand. So you just need Mariota this weekend to make a play. And I need him to do something to help us win a football game. Because as I've explained, listen, if they're 0-3 coming back home, and with the way that they've played at least through the first two games, and we'll see how Sunday plays itself out. And I know they said that Mariota, you play him because he's the best chance to win and all this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, at this point, 0-3 coming back home, you have to seriously say, why don't we make a quarterback change? Because if Marcus Mariota can't make a play to win you a football game, then you might as well trot your rookie out there. Because I think that, again, the offensive line has played well enough, they can protect him. Their running game has done enough things effectively. Let's at least see if Ritter could come in and make a play. Now, again, if Mariota can make a play on Sunday, they can win a football game. Okay, 1-2, come back here to Cleveland, who's a really good football team. You're going to be outclassed, and we'll roll the dice from there. So I don't need much out of Mariota this weekend. Don't need him to throw for 400 yards. I don't need him to throw it 35 times. He had 25 passes last week. I'm hoping that he has less than that. I'm hoping that this is a game where Mariota's only got to drop back and throw it about 20 times. But what I do need is a play out of Marcus Mariota. I want to talk about my friends over at Coffee AM. Listen, they are the best small batch coffee roaster in America. Of course, you know how much I love these folks. I drink their coffee every single morning right here in the state of Georgia, up in the Canton area. No matter what your coffee needs are, if you go to coffeeam.com/lockedon, check out their menu. You need K-Cups? They've got that available. You want organic coffees? They've got that available. You want flavored coffees? They have all of that available. You need tea? Guess what? They got that too. Well, I got a party this weekend. I need a little gift set. They got gift sets for you as well. Everything that you need and everything that you want as a coffee drinker is at Coffee AM, coffeeam.com. So go to coffeeam.com/lockedon today. Put that first order together. Go through their menu. Put that first order together. I promise you, when that box gets delivered, you open it up, it's going to smell like heaven on earth. When you get to checkout, use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, Locked On, LOCKEDON at checkout, and you get 15% off your first order. Locked On gets you 15% off your first order. CoffeeAM.com is the best small batch coffee roaster. Last night, obviously, was not a great start to this 4-game road set against the Philadelphia Phillies as they're fighting for their playoff life for the Atlanta Braves. They get shut out 1-0. And I know people are starting to panic, and they've not played well of late, and they've lost a couple of games in a row, and the offense is fluttering. Okay, well, we've talked about Matt Olson and Austin Riley. they've been fluttering for a little while here. Okay. So are the Braves primed to get on a long playoff run? Look, here's a few things. Number one is I think they are a better baseball team this year than they were last year. And I think they have a better starting rotation this year than they have last year. Bullpen-wise, I don't feel like the Braves have taken a big step back. I think Jansen's been every bit as good, as what Will Smith was last year. Smith had all his hiccups. Jansen's had his hiccups. But with McHugh and with Iglesias, I think their bullpen is fine. Now, a couple of things that I want to throw out there, okay? Against the three division leaders, Mets and the Dodgers and the Cardinals this year, the Braves are 13-16 head-to-head against those teams. Against the two wild card teams, and this could change because the Padres are stinking it up right now. Phillies are fighting. So right now, Braves, Phillies, Padres are the three wild card teams, right? The Braves are only 12-11 against those two teams. So look, we've played 19 games in the month of September, okay? Braves are 13-6 in the month of September right now. So the Braves have been fine. They've not played. Let's compare that to last year. Through the first 19 games of September, they were 10-9. So they're 3 games better this year than they were last year in September. The difference was with the Braves and where we kind of got this idea about, well, this could be special and this, that, and the other, is a couple of things. They went on for the remainder of the season. They went on a really good run. Remember, they finished out September and October with a 12-2 run. They were 12-2 their last 14 games that they played. And they started catching that lightning in a bottle, right? Soler and some of these guys. And then they got in the playoffs and they caught lightning in a bottle. Rosario, Soler, right? The guy Peterson. Peterson, the hero in the divisional series. Rosario, the hero in the NLCS. Soler, the hero in the World Series. And they caught lightning in a bottle. Besides just their positional guys and Freddie and this and that and what have you, they caught lightning in a bottle with the 3 guys they acquired to build their outfield around, right? So, look, are the Braves primed and ready to go? Yeah, just like going into last year. Now the difference could be that last year they were a division winner. This year they may or may not be. But they are 13-6 in the month of September. And they're only a game and a half back in the division. Obviously, the big difference between year over year isn't the Braves. It's the Mets. That's the difference year over year, is that the Mets are still in this thing and playing outstanding baseball. But it doesn't mean that the Braves still won't win the division. Where do I think the Braves rank in the pecking order of things in the National League? I think the Braves, Mets, and Dodgers sit well above everybody else in Major League, in the National League, let's put it this way, in that side of the bracket. I don't think when you talk about, look, St. Louis can be a dangerous team because they're a veteran squad that knows how to win. Listen, say what you will about Wainwright and Pujols and, they're 50-year-old guys that they have. They find ways to win. Milwaukee, if they make it. Philadelphia, okay, they're looking for their first playoff spot in a decade or whatever like that. The Padres are immensely talented. Even without Fernando Tatis, they're immensely talented because they're top of their rotation. If you have Yu Darvish and you have Musgrove, those 2 guys can go out and get you 2-0 to start any series. And then if Blake Snell can do anything, who had a no-hitter going the other night before Pujols, actually the guy who broke it all up. So they're 1-3. Now look, Josh Hader's been terrible. He's got a 10 ERA since he's been in San Diego. So, look, Braves, Mets, Dodgers sit above, and I think by a pretty good margin, they sit above the rest of the National League. Now, the fact that the Braves are better, the fact that they have a better rotation year over year, and the rookies that have just been outstanding, doesn't mean that the Braves are going to win the World Series. Doesn't mean that the Braves are going to repeat as champions. But you don't feel like we're just kind of, coming out of left field. Obviously, these guys have the experience, right? Having made that miraculous run and gotten a World Series last year. How do I feel about the Braves where we're at right now? Yeah, they've got some struggles, this and the other. Yeah, Olsen needs to hit better. He's hitting a $190 in the month of September, which actually is pretty good because a week ago he's hitting 095. So he's been a little bit better. Riley had 3 hits last night. We know that Ozzy's not going to be available in the regular season. We still don't know his playoff. And I'm going to tell you what my personal thought is. I don't think Ozzy plays in the first round of the playoffs. I think Ozzy, unless there's some kind of thing that they get a bye or something crazy, he's not going to play in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think he's going to have enough time to come back and heal and things like that. He may be okay to do some things, but he's not going to be healed by the time. Because remember, we're down to our last, 11, 12 games of the regular season. Playoff baseball will here before you know it. So the good news for the Braves, more importantly, is that they're still playing well right now in the month of September. The division is still within reach, and they are a better team year over year. But you do have to give some credit to the New York Mets as far as how well they've played. They've not faded. Now, look, their schedule, obviously, coming down the stretch here, the Mets are out playing the most disgraceful franchise by far in Major League Baseball. They're out in Oakland to take on the Athletics. And obviously, it's a very easy run for their schedule other than when they played the Braves. I think I saw a stat that said if the Mets win one game against the Braves, basically the Mets can go 6-5, win the division, whereas the Braves would have to go 9-3 to win the division. So the Braves would have to play some outstanding baseball. But I got news for you. That's all possible for the Braves. 9-3 in their last 12 ain't impossible. Not with the Nationals and finishing up with the Phillies and then the Mets and Marlins or whatever. 9-3 is not impossible. That's why I say this division isn't quite there yet. And that's based upon if they just take one game against the Mets. They take 2 games against the Mets. Okay, Mets are going to have to be better than 6-5 to win the division at that point. So I feel good because, look, short series, long series, whatever. You give me Fried, Wright, Strider, Morton, I'm good. And it's crazy to think we're not going to have Ian Anderson. We got word the other day, Mike Soroka's done. Can I tell you, I never expected Mike Soroka to pitch in the big leagues this season. And I told you weeks ago about Ian Anderson. I said, maybe it's better if he just stays down in Gwinnett and finishes out the year there. I know he was our best pitcher in the postseason last year, but can I tell you, if you're telling me that for this year, my replacement for Ian Anderson is Kyle Wright and Spencer Strider, I'm good with all of that. So I didn't expect Ian Anderson to have much of a role. Oda Rizzi won't have much of a role. And obviously, I didn't expect Mike Soroka to have any kind of role whatsoever. So none of this is surprising. That the plan is to go with your top 4 guns, right? But Strider, Fried, Wright, Morton, I'll take that against any team in the league, including DeGrom and Scherzer and all those guys. Because after that, those guys are all beatable. And the Braves have shown they beat DeGrom a few weeks ago, right? So I think the Braves are just fine where they're at, 13-6 in September. We'll see if that means, though, that they can find a way to win the division and make their playoff road a little bit easier. All right, well, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day. Make A to Z with Mark Zinno your second listen every day as Mark's back talking all things sports here in Atlanta. Check him out on our YouTube page for free at Locked On Sports Atlanta. Free and available, too, to download on your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Don't forget, you can give us a 5-star review there. And we are free on Roku and Amazon Fire, right? Check us out on those platforms as well. And follow me at JMCH316. We'll gather back up on Monday. We'll see what the Falcons do. It's been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.